Hey everybody, Paul Vaillancourt here, back with day 30. Day 30 of the 30 Pitches in 30 Days project. I can't believe I made it. Well, I can believe I just was going to do it. So here we are, day 30. I'm very excited. This is the last video of the pitch project per se. And then Monday, I'm going to post another video, which is basically the top few things that I learned just to put a bow on the project for you and for myself, and just to sort of just kind of sum it all up. And so we did this whole journey. What does it all mean? Or what did it all add up to? Or what did we learn? What do we take away from it? Sort of the hero's journey, coming back to the beginning, but now with some new knowledge. That's what I'm hoping to sort of close the circle on that idea. But before we get to that, we have one more pitch. That's why it's called 30 pitches, not 30 videos about what I've learned. 30 pitches in 30 days, and this is the final pitch. And I immodestly might say that it is a bit of a barn burner. I'm very excited about this idea. I was like struggling for the last day. What do I do? I think there's like a little bit of pressure on it. What am I going to do for the last day? And I sort of just eked out this little idea. And then as I started doing it more and more, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a really super fun idea. I can kind of see it more and more as I write it, which I've experienced quite a few times doing this, but I'll talk more about that on Monday. This is called Battle Magic. It is a pitch that is sort of a mashup or the two ideas that kind of really seem to sort of really make this pitch are Stripes and Harry Potter. Stripes plus Harry Potter. This is kind of where I'm at. First of all, I love both those ideas, so I'm hoping that this will sort of do justice to that very promising mashup idea. Without any further ado, here we go. Battle Magic. We open on a gigantic wizard battle. Wizards versus fairies. And the fairies are tall, inhumanly beautiful, super powerful, super evil, and are evil. And our wizards are humans, and they're boom, boom, boom. It's like energy and lightning and fire, and they're all, both sides are operating at the very edge of incredibility and at the very edge of their power. A giant shoot of flame turns into a poof of butterflies, and then gets replied by when some rocks come to life and smash some fairies. It's just like bang, 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 just like boom, incredible, incredible, incredible. And then as the battle sort of like subsides, and we see that the humans are kind of just barely coming out on top of this conflict, we see that it all kind of like waves and disappears, and it's an educational phantasm in a classroom, in a wizarding classroom. And we see that the teacher is sort of explaining, well, here's what happened, and here's this battle. It's very historic for us, and it sort of led to the peace accords between human wizards and the fairies. And you may not know this, but some of the students in this class are related to those wizards. And the teacher points out a few, including this one guy, Jace, who is, he's bad news because he's very handsome. He's very handsome and very sort of confident, sort of knew this was coming, and he's kind of, ready for the credit for something that he had nothing to do with, that his ancestors had something to do with, but he definitely is riding that wave, kind of like old money magic. And in the back of the classroom, though, there's a little cadre of students, 6 of them, who are clearly not the popular kids, clearly not the best students in the class. And as the class is dismissed and everyone's sort of told to go their separate ways, everyone else goes one way and these 6 go another way. Their leader is a young woman named Lindsay, and she is sort of smart and snarky and funny and kind of really goes to the beat of her own drummer. And the rest of them kind of look up to her because she's been here a while. She's very confident, and that's the main thing that she has that they don't have, even though they're all struggling. And the reason they're struggling, the reason they're sort of set aside, is because none of them can control their magic. It's very inconsistent. The results are not always what they hope they'll be. They haven't been able to generate enough actual power to sort of be valuable in a way, and so they're sort of sent off to their own thing. As they're sort of in their special sort of set aside class, one of the administrators of the school, Garrity, comes and talks to them and says, "Look, we've talked it over, and as you know, uncontrolled magic can be very dangerous and it can be very destructive, and so we are assigning you a special instructor who is a specialist at whipping teams into order, and we are saying that you all need to make significant progress significant progress under his tutelage, or we will strip your magic out of you. There's spells and devices that they can use, obviously, to strip the magic out and just make someone like a regular person, a muggle, if you're using the Harry Potter language. So, but no one wants that to happen. It's sort of like losing one of your senses. They're connected to this magic, even though they can't control it. This is really a dire consequence. And then they meet their teacher. His name is Maxwell Cornwall Hammer, and he has just recently been demoted from the leader of an elite combat magic squad into this position. We find out it's because he was speaking out against the administration, speaking out against the things that they were doing and the practices that they had and sort of the strategies that they were employing, and he just thought it was ridiculous. And he's a guy in the field, he knows what it takes and he knows what it is, and they were not listening to him at all. So he's too valuable of a weapon to completely disregard, so they've sort of demoted him to this to hopefully to break his spirit and humble him, but they have no idea who they're dealing with. As he sort of introduces himself to the class, Lindsay, the snarky, smart one of the bunch, realizes that Maxwell Cornwall Hammer, that his initials are MC Hammer, and this is a hilarious joke that they really get a lot of mileage out of, and a lot of Hammer Time references as we go, and Too Legit to Quit as we go. But it's sort of like a joke, but he doesn't like it, but takes it in stride and kind of, in a way humanizes this sort of combat machine to these kids. And he's very tough. He's uncompromising in his demand for excellence, and he puts these kids through their paces, and they learn and they train, and it's very tough. And there's a lot of sweat and tears along the way, and he really forces them to be their best, the best of what they are. The one who struggles the most, though, is Lindsay, because her problem is that she can't, or that she does the best on challenges and things where she does it her own way. She doesn't function, or her magic doesn't function as well inside the institutionalized sort of tracks of magic. She's a little bit more of a free spirit. Her magic is a little more wild. And when she embraces that, she succeeds. And when she tries to force it into a box, she fails and she struggles. So as their training cycle comes to an end, Garrity returns, or the kids all get letters that they've all sort of made significant progress, but they need to stay and keep training, except for Lindsay. She's the one, she gets a letter that says she hasn't made significant progress, and they know her backstory and sort of where she's come from, and they hopefully that she will understand that it's really for her best, and for everyone around her, for them to strip away her magic. We find out that her backstory is basically when she was younger, her uncontrolled magic really flared up and went out of control and injured some of those people closest to her family and stuff, and really has alienated her from her family for a long time. And so she's really conflicted, because she does sort of get the idea, she understands that magic can be a curse, but also, as I said before, she's really connected to it, and when she kind of does it her own way, it really is magnificent, but she hasn't sort of definitely completely embraced her own voice with magic, so she struggles with that from time to time, and that's why it's inconsistent. But she doesn't want to get her magic stripped away. At least not yet. She's conflicted about it, but she knows she doesn't want it yet. So what she does is she escapes. She leaves, and she just goes totally AWOL on this idea. At the same time, we see in the fairy realm, we see some fairy royals meeting with some human wizards. And as we see this happening, we see that it's actually Garrity, the administrator, who's kind of running this whole operation, and Jace, who is that shiny student who's related to some of the wizards from that great Titanic battle in the very opening scene, and they are trying to make a pact, a sort of side deal with the fairy to accrue more power to themselves and to kind of sell out the wizards. And they know that there's certain pieces of the puzzle that need to be taken off the board, or chess pieces that need to be taken off the board before they can do that. And the first among them is Hammer, Maxwell Cornwall Hammer. And so they send a student of Hammer's to sort of speak with him, and they're sort of talking very casually. But what the student does is the student drugs Hammer when he's not looking. It's someone he trusts, and they are able to take him away, and they spirit him off to the fairy realm. The problem is that as they're taking him, some of the kids from the Misfit group are coming to talk to him about how they feel about Lindsay being, escaping and sort of the threat that she's under and all this kind of stuff. And they are just about to enter the house, and they see what's going on. And one of the kids, the smallest one, Michelle, the smallest one, the tiniest one, the most vulnerable one, she is a real eyewitness to it, and they see her, and they take her as well. So now the fairies have kidnapped Hammer and Michelle, and they're both, and now the remaining kids are freaking out. They're like, oh my god, we've got to find Lindsay. So they go off into like a secluded area, maybe off into the woods, where they can sort of do a little bit of remote viewing in a little pond that exists on the grounds of the school for just such a purpose. And one of the kids like starts doing it, and it sort of comes into focus. And what we see from their point of view is we see Lindsay living in a small town, and she has made some friends. In fact, one special friend, a young gentleman caller, who she has brought home to her little modest house, or sort of a cabin kind of. And they've just come back from a date, and it starts to get a little romantic, a little hot and heavy. They start making out, and it seems like something's going to happen. And the kids are remote viewing, but as they're doing it, all the emotional energy of seeing their friend and the emotional energy from Lindsay's side transforms this sort of observation window into a gate, and they all fall through this gate into the bedroom, into the middle of this romantic encounter between Lindsay and her young gentleman friend. And he is freaked out, and he runs out. Oh my god, and he runs out. But she's not super heartbroken, because he was just kind of like, something to pass the time. So it's all good. She's thrilled to see them, but they tell their story, and she is, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But at the same time, she's like, well, the wizarding school has never really done anything for me. The system really hasn't done anything for me. What if it just burns? Why do I care? If it burns, it hasn't really done anything for me. And then they tell her that Michelle was taken. And this is a girl that we've seen all along. Lindsay has had sort of a maternal auntie sort of feeling towards, and so this is now, it's personal to her, and she gets drawn into this conflict. She thinks about it for a moment, and once she knows that Michelle's involved, she's like, I'm in. No sooner does she say that than the house is attacked by a wizard strike force, and they're like blasting, and they know they've got to escape. So they escape back through the portal that they came into the bedroom, but no sooner do they get back there than they're surrounded by wizards from that side, because those wizards at the school believe that somehow some witnesses saw the kids near Hammer's quarters when he was taken, so they believe that they're involved, and they don't know who to trust, because if Garrity's involved in this, then who do they trust? So they go back into, they're like boosh through these portals, and they're back into the cabin, and they sort of fight off this wizard strike force, but their magic is really unreliable, so it's a very sloppy, dirty, messy fight. But a W's a W, and they end up winning and actually taking one of the other wizards captive and forcing him to use his abilities to open a gate to the fairy realm. This is something that's very delicate, and they couldn't really manage it on their own. They force him to do it, and as they sort of pass through the gate or through the doorway, they take the essential element that allows him to do this, so they can't be followed immediately. They get at least a little bit of a head start. In the fairy realm, though, now they're there, it's very much like our realm, but it's a little more, obviously more magical and more fraught. Everything is a little bit over gilded. The forest is super foresty. The sky is like super dark or super bright, and the moon super bright. Everything's just if you just turned everything up. Right? That's what the fairy realm looks like. And on the horizon there is a huge castle, which is obviously where their friends are being held captive. And we see them, they're sort of in sort of magic dampening caves or cages, so they can't escape. They can't use what they've got. Except for Michelle is able to do just a little light show, and it's kind of makes the jailers laugh. It's like, oh, what is this? But she like sends it up over the castle, and it just ends up being kind of like a flare. The fairies don't think anything of it, because it's not doing anything. It's not affecting anyone. They certainly don't know that a rescue party's on the way, but it is enough to inspire and give the Misfits a guidance and knowledge and sort of a direction, and they head off in that direction. When they get to the castle, they end up sort of making their way through a very sloppy, just like the previous combat sequence, sloppy, magic-soaked rescue attempt full of missteps and craziness. But they finally get to the cells. They get to their friends, and they're just about to free them when, whoosh, in comes Garrity, Jace, and a bunch of the fairy sort of police that are going to stop them, army/police. We find out sort of earlier on that Jace and Lindsay dated when they first got to the school, and so she has like a personal grudge against him on top of all the terrible shit that he's doing now. And so it is on. They are fighting these wizards and they are fighting these fairies, and it's like boom, boom, boom. It's sort of like a little bit of a lower scale version of that opening Titanic battle, but no less dramatic and no less fantastical. And they are fighting almost to a standstill, which for them really is a win, because no one ever thought that they would even get that far. They haven't been able to free their friends, so it's like, oh gosh, they're still really outnumbered. And ultimately it looks as though they're going to lose because they just don't have the numbers. Right? And but before the final dire cast on this, before this kind of final thing happens, one of the kids is able to get to Michelle and free her, and she steps out, and then everyone's like, oh shit, and they all sort of push off to the sides, and the fair's like, what is it? What are you talking about? What's going on? And Lindsay tells Michelle, let it go! And Michelle like explodes in a big wave of energy. This is her thing, is that her magic has only gone like 0 or 100, and she really can't control it that much, so it's been really hard for her to find the right places to use it. But now it's like boom, it's 100, and she easily overtakes these fairies, and Jace and Garrity knew what was coming, so they ducked off to the sides, and they come back out once this sort of thing has happened, and Michelle's expended, and she's kind of collapses, and Lindsay grabs her, and they are ready to Jace and Garrity are ready to, put an end to this. They still have their magic, and they kind of know how to use it, and they knew what was coming. But just as they step up, make their final big speeches, and they're about to unleash the hell that they have stored, all the kids part slowly apart, and there, standing, is Maxwell Cornwall Hammer, and he is mad. And he lets loose, and he does a spell. Before anything happens, he just does a spell. It's like a wave of energy, and Jace and Garrity absorb it, and they're like, haha, we've done it. We're not really affected, but what it's done is it's canceled their magic. It's turned it down. Not only does it turn down their magic, which will return because it's not a permanent spell, but in the meantime, it's canceled their magic, and it's also canceled the magical agreement that they have that keeps the fairies at bay. So they are vulnerable. So they are now just a couple of humans hanging out in the fairy realm. Maxwell still has all of his magic, so he makes a quick little gate, and they all escape, except for the turncoats, and they're left to face a group of angry, battle-beaten fairies that are sort of encroaching on them, and they know that it's not going to be good because they have nothing to defend themselves with. Back in our realm, we see the end of their battle, this big battle that we've just seen. We see it from a different angle, and it's very amazing. And it's sort of like as it rounds out with Michelle's big explosion of energy, it all sort of turns down. And this too is an educational phantasm, and we see that these kids now have become the icons that are being held up, or they've become like the thought leaders of this school. And we see that Lindsay now is a teacher of this classroom, but this class is all students that are misfits, all students that have wild magic that hasn't found its way yet. And she's sort of shepherding them through. Off in the corner, sort of standing for the special presentation, is MC Hammer. Not the MC Hammer, our MC Hammer. And he sort of gives her like a knowing sort of tilt of his head. She back, the sort of grudging respect between the two of them. And the rest of the team comes in, and the kids just give a wild round of applause. They can't believe they're meeting their heroes, these people that they just seen. It's like you just saw a movie of Avengers, and then the actual Avengers come in, but it's like a documentary about the Avengers, and here they are in the classroom, and you want to be one of them. It's like, it's an amazing outpouring of emotion and credit and stuff, and this is sort of where our story ends. It's ready to open the next chapter of Misfit Magic, of battle magic, into this realm. And that, my friends, is the end of this pitch and of the 30 pitches of the 30 days project. If you've been with me all the way along, thank you. If you've been with me only part of the way, thank you. If this is the first video you've ever watched, thank you for taking the time to check it out. And please check out some of the other pitches. I think there's a lot of good ones in there. And also please check out my video on Monday, because I think it's going to be really informative. And if you didn't want to watch any of the pitches, but you just wanted to know sort of what is this worth it, or what did we learn, or what does this project all add up to, then that's going to be the video for you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on Monday.